Well, good morning, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to this edition of Tech Talk with Zyxel. Hi, I'm one of the senior product managers here. My name is Tri. I've been here at Zyxel for almost 15 years now, and I've been in part of the networking industry for about 20 years. This is a weekly interactive discussion. Right now, I just wanted to see, hey, if you raised your hand so you can hear me, make sure that the sound is all working okay for you guys. But yeah, this basically is a quick introduction, interactive discussion forum to talk about a certain topic. We do this, we try to do this almost every Tuesday at 11 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for joining us. It's kind of a quick, interactive, informative session, kind of a little bit more, I guess, informal in some sense. But we wanted you to be able to ask questions along the way. If you can use the Q&A section there. We'll have a quick introduction of who Zyxel is. We'll present the topic of discussion, and then we'll open up to a Q&A session at the end. So get those questions posted, like I mentioned. If you want, I can unmute you and we can talk. You can ask those questions live. We'll deal with that. So if you have a mic and you want to do that, you can get that all set up before we get to that Q&A section. So before we go into the topic of discussions, I wanted to introduce you to Zyxel. So we are celebrating our 30 years of networking experience here, providing products of all sorts globally. We were established in 1989. We have 1,500 employees worldwide, powering up 700,000 businesses using Zyxel solutions in 150 markets globally. There's about 100 million devices that are connecting people globally as well when you're talking about everything that we do, all the products that we implement together. We have a comprehensive range of products and solutions, really giving that user end-to-end kind of feel. So we really want to do and give a one network experience to both system integrators and also to the end user as well. So those who are managing these networks, those people who are maintaining these business networks. We offer a full range of UTM security appliances that provide full threat protection, VPN encryption solutions, etc., and a full range of managed and cloud access points in the wireless LAN scenario for really any solution that you have for wireless applications. Ethernet, fiber, LAN switches for your backbone, really to support any kind of simple basic setup, all the way to very complex, fully managed network infrastructures, including using layer 2, layer 3 plus switches with and without PoE, gateway routers with hotspot functionalities, and all of that can be managed, all these products being either managed centrally or via a cloud application. So today I wanted to talk about SD-WAN. We wanted to introduce you to what SD-WAN is, how to use it, and also Zyxel's solution to offering how to offer SD-WAN to your customers and what kind of applications that can be used in that regard. So what is SD-WAN? Well, simply put, it's just, by definition, it's a software-defined wide area network. And so that typically, has been used by enterprise to improve site-to-site connectivity, reduce cost overheads that come with using your traditional MPLS or T1, tier 1 dedicated services, etc. And here at Zyxel, we always like to bring enterprise applications and functions to the small business. So our design and our approach really utilizes those kinds of applications to improve reliability, performance over your traditional VPN networks for many different types of applications, especially the mission critical applications. So what are some of those applications? Well, what applications need SD-WAN? Well, on the top of the list, of course, is voice over IP and video conferencing, as they typically use, a lot of site-to-site, either VPN tunnels, or they have PBXs that are hosted at maybe a central site, especially when they're dealing with different types of phone extensions, et cetera, as well as those connections of the VoIP and the video being very sensitive to, things like latency and lag or jitter and things like that. Now, other applications that could use SD-WAN or could really benefit from it is any kind of HD video content, virtualized applications when you're, accessing files or applications across a VPN tunnel. CAD drawings and that kind of industry where a lot of huge files are being transferred or being shared to a central location, or even for backup, or even like healthcare imaging, which really needs an efficient way to do file transfers, if it's outside of the network. and be able to transfer these, reliably as well. So you have to talk about reliability, not only the performance and et cetera, but really that's the only way you can replace, these kinds of MPLS type connections. So traditional, challenges that we have in your typical VPN networks. There's challenges both on the end user side and also on the VAR or the MSP side. So I'm sure there's a lot of you here who are, our partners and our managed service providers providing probably some sort of encrypted VPN solution to your end customers. So end users are typically relying more on the cloud, right? You are installing things either onto a central site at the headquarters or within the cloud itself. So the reliability of the internet, including the latency and stuff, needs to be fast. It needs to be able to perform. They also face network security threats, which need to also scale. So you have the security issues that you have to deal with, and then you have to be able to scale to those kinds of needs. And then, of course, on the VAR and MSP side, there's challenges as well to be able to provide this kind of service as really cost-effective way. On the VAR side, there are VARs are trying to maximize the connection that's available. So be able to use the connection that's already there, and then be able to manage and control these complex networks, right, in a single pane of glass or some sort of management solution so they can monitor it as well. And of course, these are very complex scenarios sometimes. So we want to be able to control these complex networks. And they're solving problems where the network may be full of bottlenecks, especially when you're dealing with VPN. I have an example that I'll show you regarding what happens when you have a, kind of a central VPN node and a lot of hub and spoke kind of scenarios where the main hub will be kind of bombarded and be the bottleneck. So those may exist. And of course, you need then visibility to simplify the network, to be able to control that traffic, especially dealing with different types of traffic or applications running across those VPN networks, how to shape the traffic, how to do all the QoS and control. So the WAN, or the wide area network, is basically just the network that connects remote locations together through the internet. So, you're using your internet connection typically to connect back to headquarters from different branch offices. So that's all a WAN is. And of course, the legacy WAN, the public internet, is what we use today. It has really kind of a vast, unlimited last mile capacity. And you typically pay, a monthly price. So this is our typical internet connection that we deal with now. There's routers and trace routes and routes that are going throughout the world to provide that connectivity. And of course, they're also provided by the ISP, what we call MPLSs. These are multi-protocol label switching connections. They are provided by the telco to commit or provide a guaranteed SLA, both on the latency and uptime. And the reason why, companies or corporations buy or participate in an MPLS network is because of that guaranteed uptime and latency. So a lot of times they will use an MPLS to do voice over IP applications or those mission critical applications, right? To make sure that that connectivity is on as best as possible. But there are typically high costs involved. They're typically charged at the megabits per second. They could take a very long time to provision, sometimes weeks to even months to provision before you can get those lines. And there's some limited coverage. So you may have to go through multiple carriers and to be able to provide a kind of an end-to-end connectivity between your headquarters and all of your different branch offices. So that could be a problem. So there's always been the idea to augment the MPLS with your public internet. So that's what really gave rise to SD-WAN. SD-WAN is using both. They could be using both MPLS and internet links to handle the WAN traffic, provide anything that's latency sensitive applications like the voice over IP can go across the MPLS network, and of course the rest of the traffic can use the internet link. So you could benefit from both, high availability because you're using two different kinds of internet connections in case the MPLS or the internet connection goes down, and so you do reduce the need to increase any kind of capacity of the MPLS itself. Some disadvantages to this, though, is that MPLS is still there and it's costly because the VPN link, is typically just by itself could be, it's dependent upon that internet connectivity. So there is, costs that you still have on the MPLS, but then you still have maybe potentially the unreliability or maybe the latency on that single internet connection. And again, it still requires your participation of your local ISP to providing you that MPLS. And it requires then, there's limited optimization, especially from the branch office to the headquarters side when you're doing this augmented. So just some more information on traditional VPN networks, just how you built, connections together. You usually do a site to site. And so that typically, is a manual VPN configuration. How many of you guys out there have configured a VPN tunnel before? Just by a show of hands, just to see who's out there, who's struggled, knowing that VPN tunnels are pretty complex, and the fact that there's a lot of things you have to kind of implement and make sure have all the security. Thanks for the hands. Especially then you have to make sure that the connectivity is alive, making sure that the tunnel is up. And there's typically no tests that are available to do that. You kind of have to have your own monitoring or your own ping, to send data across. It's a lot of times it's difficult to manage the traffic that goes through as well. So it adds to the complexity, especially when you're wanting to do some bandwidth management for different types of applications. That could be pretty, pretty intense there. And especially it adds to the complexity when you're adding more sites to the infrastructure. So just adding additional, locations, you kind of make the central site as a hub, typically, so then you can communicate either through the hub, right? So that's kind of a typical hub and spoke kind of scenario. And again, if you start adding even more to the infrastructure, there is a potential choke point now in the headquarters location, because all the traffic is then passing through one location in order to get to the other locations. So to remove that, of course, you can then create VPN tunnels that go from the different locations, so each one of the spokes, to other spokes. And a lot of times you had to do that individually, you had to do it manually. So again, it creates a very complex scenario with the routing and all the applications that need to go through, the security level. And then of course, each location needs to support additional connections. So you need to have more VPN tunnels available in order to build those VPN tunnels to those other locations. So that could get, expensive as well, as you have to increase the, the capacity or size of your VPN device. So then, of course, when you're operating them as well, it gets a lot, like I mentioned, can get very complex. And then, of course, when you're dealing with backup lines now, if you have dual WAN capabilities, you want to add redundancy to the network. Now, all of a sudden, you have redundancy of dual WANs going to the headquarters, and again, having to deal with the complexity of that network. And of course, there is one other thing. When there is degraded traffic, for example, like there where it shows the packet loss, but it's not down, the problem is, you're not able to detect that, hey, that particular line is, providing latency. So voice applications, video applications can get choppy, can start buffering, things like that, without you being able to do anything necessarily, because it's not down, so it's not going to fail over. So that still provides you an issue. So this is where Nebula Orchestra and Zyxel's SD-WAN solution, it comes into play. So Nebula Orchestrator is basically a cloud management solution. It orchestrates the connectivity of the VPN as well as a bunch of other functions as well. It provides zero-touch provisioning. So you can deploy new branch office gateways to auto-provision new sites that come up, or even your initial installation. Dynamic path selection, being able to do real-time monitoring the path quality of that VPN tunnel, and then move, even down to the packet level, switch to the best transmission path. So you can choose the tunnel that is best optimized for it. And then WAN optimization, be able to improve the performance between branch offices and corporate, using some cool tricks and things like that for the WAN connectivity, to be able to maximize even though there may be latency, so to be able to maximize the connectivity, the connection speed itself. Offering security things like content filtering, being able to use the database in the cloud of over 140 billion URLs to block both HTTP and HTTPS encrypted web pages. So being able to block things like YouTube or social media, through this particular application. Application intelligence allows for you to then identify over 3,000 different protocols and applications, and then use that intelligence to prioritize, to be able to do QoS, to be able to block, allow, do time applications as well. So you could block things or allow, hey, Netflix outside of office hours, things like that. Dynamic mesh VPN. This allows for us to build dynamic VPN tunnels when there's actually a traffic flow request. So that helps to, again, reduce the bottleneck in the central location or even any of the locations. So it's a really cool function of this SD-WAN solution that we have here, especially for people who are trying to build VPN tunnels throughout everywhere to a bunch of different locations. Of course, as you build more, as you more sites, then there's much more benefit in using SD-WAN. So each site usually has a site-to-site, right? You could optimize it using Zyxel's WAN optimization technology here. It actually optimizes the TCP, the latency, the packet loss, and it mitigates all of that so that it can actually make your internet data transfer be much more efficient. You can prioritize it according to bandwidth and also to different applications in real time. So there's one cool application that I'll mention to you later on. So what we do is we continually monitor the connections. So we look for basically the best path, best quality connection that's available. And then of course we switch over dynamically if one of these lines is degraded. So the packet won't go through that line anymore, but we'll switch over to the secondary line. So it's pretty cool effect. What it means is that the packets are going through the best path, and it does that seamlessly without you having to being aware of what's going on. And especially that is important when you're dealing with voice over IP or video applications where there's no time to sit around and buffer and wait for packets. This will allow for a much improved call quality and video call quality as well, especially in applications now where you have video conferencing and things like that. Even in our tests with Skype, there's a huge dramatic difference from the different artification and with and without SD-WAN. So the orchestrator also detects traffic that moves from one hub to another, and it will dynamically establish those connections using that VPN. So the user is really, again, unaware of this even happening, but then they are able to see the traffic being moved, and then of course the two locations will make a VPN dynamically. It will traverse that connectivity, and then after the session or whatever is stopped, then the connection can be removed. So one of the applications, the cool application that I mentioned just earlier, we did a test where we downloaded or transferred a 1.3 gig file. We basically ran the Linux or the Ubuntu image here. It was like a 1.9 gig file without SD-WAN. So we moved it from Germany to our headquarters in Taiwan. Without SD-WAN optimization, it took 2 hours and 40 minutes to transfer at a rate of around 300 kilobits per second. Because again, going over across that kind of distance, there's latency, jitter, lag, that kind of thing. But with SD-WAN optimization, that same exact file took only 10 minutes, going at 24 megabits per second. So you can see the connection information there was, pretty substantial. It was, packet loss of 0.3%, jitter over 3 milliseconds. And so that the ping times and stuff like that, were pretty substantial. And even just that, not substantial, but even that little bit of lag latency can cause such a dramatic change in how the file gets transferred. So it's pretty crazy there. So huge performance difference. With the orchestrator, you're able to also manage, that's one of the key features, key functions that managed service providers struggle with is, how do I manage all of these VPN locations? Who's part of what group? How do I get ease of use? So with Orchestrator, which I'll show a demo as well after this this presentation, it provides you a multi-tier management structure. So you have a group topology, which then can be put into an organization. So that could be like your customer. And then, of course, each customer can have multiple sites underneath as well. So the three-tier topology, it allows for you to do configurations at each level. So you can automate different management structures. For example, you can create organization plans, guest networks, corporate networks that are automatically deployed to all the sites, including, global subnet policies. So you have certain subnets, you have certain DNS, those kinds of things. You can basically mass push that to all the devices within the group, the org, or the site. And of course, you can then use the product as well to gain control over security. We provide firewall functionalities, GeoIP enforcement. So basically, you can block content or block connectivity based on country of origin of that IP address itself. So you could say, hey, I only accept internet traffic from the United States, and anywhere else, whether it be VPN connectivity or even just remote access, both in and out, it can be blocked based by the country. And like I mentioned earlier, the content filtering, being able to block things like YouTube, Facebook, any kind of websites, and then also application control, being able to see what applications, and of course, the management and the reporting that's available with Orchestrator is very important as well. You can see, what kind of applications, which locations, destinations are using the most, the most traffic, or is the most vulnerable, or provide you the most threat. We provide also a simple way to use the SD-WAN. So if you already have a VPN series product like the VPN 50, 100, or 300, it actually comes on the latest firmware with the ability to switch it back and forth between a standalone VPN device that you're used to now and SD-WAN, the SD-WAN software. So using your existing hardware, you can actually flip it between the standalone and the Nebula Orchestrator. So if you actually have one and want to test it, the SD-WAN, you can do that already immediately. Just make sure that you upload the latest firmware on that VPN 50, or sorry, the VPN device. And it actually even works on the low end VPN 50 model as well. You can deploy VPN basically even with like a USB key if you'd like. Really what we try to do is eliminate the complexity of having to do all of your initial configuration and setup of both the hardware, and also, I mean, the biggest pain is loading all of this on your mobile, on the computers, on the PCs themselves. So you actually can set up a rule in Orchestrator and be able to use that to distribute the settings via the zero-touch provisioning, either by email, by text, or by USB. So you can choose which way you want to send out basically the configurations, how to connect back to that. So you could do that via those methods to really save time. You can use also the auto VPN function that's in Orchestrator to provide and create site-to-site and client-to-site VPNs. You basically configure the profiles and then choose who's part of the hub and who's part of the spoke and who's part of the group, right? So if you can say, hey, everybody or all these devices, all these users are part of a VPN group, then it will automatically build all the necessary VPN tunnels between that to make that happen. So really, we're trying to take away the pain point of doing VPN, do all the VPN tunnels. And then we also, again, like I mentioned earlier, using a very easy way for you to deploy to the client devices. So that auto VPN also uses functions on the client of Windows, the inherent native ones from Windows, Mac OS, and iOS devices. So you can really provision all of these endpoint devices very quickly and easily using either email to activate the script, things like that. So you could do that very quickly and deploy a mass number of them very easily. So these are the hardware that supports the Nebula Orchestrator and the SD-WAN. So you'll notice the VPN 50, the VPN 100 series, and the VPN 300. Now, the cool thing is if you already have a VPN device now, or when you purchase it off, when you purchase it now today, they come if included with 1 year of Nebula Orchestrator SD-WAN functionalities and all of the security services that I mentioned before, the application control, the content filtering, the geo enforcement, all those functionalities are available as included as part of your purchase of the VPN 50. So make sure you take advantage of that if you are looking at using the VPN models here to use it for SD-WAN. So it scales obviously between the models. It starts at a VPN throughput about 150 megabits per second, all the way up to VPN throughput of about 1 gig. Now, of course, keep in mind that depending on your application, depending on your tests, things like that, usually my kind of gauging point is you take the datasheet number, which is this is the maximum theoretical throughput. You take about 50 to 60% of that number, and that's what you would realistically experience from a day-to-day basis. So keep that in mind when you are speccing out the connections and how you're building these VPN tunnels, especially for SD-WAN. Now, you think about it, a lot of the traditional SD-WAN providers now are providing 1 meg connections. They're providing 10 meg connections, and you have to pay for the different performance size of those WAN connections. And then a lot of them are forcing you to send all of your traffic, whether it be VoIP or regular data traffic through that SD-WAN. So it adds up and it becomes very costly to do so. So Jim asked the question, will this work with the USG series appliance and the new ATP appliances? At the current moment, no. It is only available right now on the VPN series. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't someday port it over to the ATP. The ATP seems to be the more likely hardware solution because it is of the newer hardware generation. So USG series will be, it will probably be more of the ATP series. But right now, at the time being, there's no current roadmap on it, but it is available on the VPN series. So you would probably have still a 2-box solution if you're looking at doing this one strictly for the SD-WAN functionality. And then, of course, pairing it up with the ATP in order to provide you with the high-level sandboxing security and then the high-throughput UTM. So you let this box do the VPN and the SD-WAN optimization while the ATP is then doing your typical scan functionality. So this will basically sit in front of your ATP device. So Orchestrator is actually free. So even though we've paired it up and we've given you 1 year of the full Nebula Orchestrator, the full SD-WAN version, after 1 year, if you decide not to use it, or whatever it is, after we stop this kind of 1 year promotion, then it will always be a free orchestrator. So the free orchestrator still gives you access to the cloud, gives you email with the 0 provisioning, auto VPN, monitoring is less. So instead of a full years of monitoring and storage, you're getting only 7 days. And then, of course, the monitoring data, the orchestrator will only have 1 day of monitoring data in the free, but 30 days in the full-blown version. And of course, if you want to take advantage of all the neat actual SD-WAN functionalities, the dynamic path selection, WAN optimization, content filtering, et cetera, is part of that full package. Now, you could use, now people say, well, why would I use the Nebula Basic Free? Well, if you're just wanting to use Orchestrator for VPN management, so being able to have a single pane to manage VPN tunnels, do your automatic VPN meshing, so really kind of sticking to the VPN solution itself, providing all those VPN connectivities, then that's where you would use the Nebula Orchestrator. Joe also had a question, does it work with Nebula NSG series router? Actually, it does not currently, but actually this is part of the Nebula kind of family. There will be a time when the SD-WAN solution will be merged fully into the Nebula solution. Right now, it is part of the Nebula Orchestrator, and I'll show you how you get there. It's still a single login through your Nebula account. You'll see there's two sections that you can go, 2 paths that you go. One is to go to the orchestrator, and one is to go to your NCC cloud controller. And of course, our partner program is very aggressive. We offer a partner program that's free to sign up, and you immediately start at the silver tier. You want to be able to jump in. If you're not a partner already, take advantage of this. Go sign up because it's free money, basically. You get discounts right off the bat, 16% off of your distribution price. And then to maintain this benefit of being even at the silver tier, it only requires qualifying sales of around $6,000 per 6 months. And of course, if you hit 12K in that half year, you actually move up to gold, where you get the best benefits. You get the highest margins, so 20% off of distribution discounts, access to many other benefits, including lead referrals, access to our systems engineers when you're building out, different solutions, and advanced replacement as well with the hardware. We partner up with D&H, Ingram Micro, Synix, and Wave at the moment. So also, if you have any stock issues with any of the SKUs that you deal with from a day-to-day basis, make sure you reach out to your regional sales rep because we always have a way. We probably have stock in our warehouse, and we can always work to drop ship them directly through your distributor. So make sure you get that signed up, just to make sure you get all the benefits you can, so you can take advantage of that. So at this moment, I want to go and share my web screen to go over to the Nebula side of things. So you go to Nebula. So all you got to do is go to nebula.zyxel.com. And you'll see this menu here. You just can click and get started. You guys can also access the demo as well. Let me move the screen out here. Let me log in here. So once you log in, you can use that demo to log in. You'll have two screens here. One that says here's the Nebula Control Center. This is where you manage all of your NSGs, NSWs, Nebula Flex product line, all those business cloud products. Now, if you're not familiar with Nebula, there is a Nebula webinar that will be coming up soon. You'll see the date at the end of our webinar here. So I would advise for you to join that to find out more about what Nebula is, because that is definitely a growing sector for us. It's huge, hugely growing for us. So yeah, you want to be able to get in on that. But here's the Nebula Orchestrator side. So this is to manage your VPN connectivity as well as your SD-WAN services. So if you click onto that, you'll be sent into the Nebula SD-WAN side of things. So of course you're approached with the dashboard of your particular group that you're monitoring. It'll show the VPN connectivity between the locations. So for example, if I want to check here, right now there's currently no traffic, but the health of the VPN between our headquarters to the US office in Anaheim is healthy. Now, if you can see over here, there's something going on. It's yellow because something is either down, but not everything is down. If everything was down, the connection would be all red, right? So now it's showing a yellow for warning. Again, there's no traffic currently going through there, but you can then do all of your management, your configuration through through this GUI as well. So again, you can manage on the group level. I can't change things because this is on the demo site. But once you're, you can obviously go through all this and be able to choose. There's also a wizard as well that allows for you to go through and set up your VPN connectivities as well. So you can go down to the site level, take a look at what is there. Of course, we don't have any current traffic going on there for whatever reason. I know that we're doing some updates on our WAN connection today, but there's a lot of, you can then change how, this is for the past hour. Let's see what the past month looks like here. And you can check also based on the interface, the application that's there, the source and destination. So you can do a lot of troubleshooting within this view. So that just kind of shows you, what the connections through that VPN tunnel has been over the last month. So obviously something between like the April timeframe, something easier has gone down, or we're just not transferring traffic over that VPN tunnel at the moment. starting in April. But again, that could be part of our change in IP addresses that we've done recently. So that could be part of that. So you can configure the device through this as well. So now you can configure everything you would typically configure to manage that particular device. All of your ports, your information. You can even put it on a Google map to show where it's at. You can set up all different types of parameters, what your different WAN, what the ports are being used as, setting up the client auto VPN, the routing, authentication, and of course, setting up all the firewall functionality. So the firewall then allows for you to set up, blocking web pages. It's again trying to make it easy for you to set up a one-to-one rules, port forwarding rules, anything that you would normally do. So then there's also initial wizards, especially on the MSP side. Up at the top, you can do go through an initial wizard, and that helps you to set up the different organizations, create any sites that are part of a VPN, and then deploy them. You can choose to deploy them, and then of course it will do some confirmation as well. So it takes you through the process of setting up those group organizations and sites. And of course, you can flip over to Nebula as well and flip back. So if you click on up here at the top, it could flip you over to the NCC side of things. So that's where you're going to manage your Nebula Control Center. And of course, if you're in your Nebula Control Center, managing your access points, gateways, things like that for the Nebula solution, again, at the top here, you can then click back to go back to the orchestrator side as well. So I'd encourage you to take a look, just log on to that demo site or create your own site using your hardware, or get a VPN device like a VPN 50 and stick it onto your Nebula account and just configure it, try it out, get a couple of them, build a VPN tunnel, see how easy it is to get those to connect, and then be able to see the traffic and manage them, etc. So let's go back. Alrighty. So that's that. So we're going to open it up this time to, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A section. And of course, if you'd like to, talk, let me know. Make sure if you're on, your mic is on. I'm going to lower all your hands. If you want to talk via mic, we can try to unmute you and I'll let you ask the question. If not, again, use the Q&A section. Ask any questions you like about SD-WAN or any other topics related to that. Feel free to send that my way. And of course, if you have questions, after this webinar, feel free to email me. My email address is try. That's TRI at Zyxel.com. So it's TRI at Zyxel.com. Pretty easy. So send it my way, and I'll be glad to let you know what's going on. I'll answer them as best as I can. Let me move these windows over here. I think I shared technically the wrong window, but it's all good. Gochko? Yes, that's correct. Your question was only VPN firewall support SD-WAN. That's correct. The VPN series is the only one that currently supports the SD-WAN functionality. And so that cannot be used. Currently, it's not usable in the USG series. So you have to go to the VPN series to provide that SD-WAN. Now, of course, you can then use as a replacement, the SD-WAN functionality to replace your MPLS. So you usually will have a VPN tunnel between the two different locations. So you have an endpoint to endpoint. So wherever you're hosting that, that's where you will, you have both on the office headquarter side and on the branch office side. You'll have to have one of the VPN devices each. The firewall section looks pretty close to the NSG firewall portable. Is there a plan to make it more granular? Yes, there will always be plans to make it more granular there, Jim. If you have any requests for that, you can make sure you use the forum that's part of Nebula. to making requests for any additional granular functions, because they're always adding that. So you have any requests for that, make sure you add it there so they can track it. As there's more demand for those kinds of functions, we will work to add that to make it more usable for you. Yeah, if there's a specific one that you want to send me directly, Jim, just go ahead and email me directly with the information. I'll pass that along to our developers. All right, I think at this time, there doesn't look like there's any other questions. Oh, there's another question that just came in actually from Michael. Does the SD-WAN system generate mobile config files for use with Mac OS and iOS? If so, it can also support PEEP authentication. I have to check with our developers to see exactly how it is, but it does have support for Mac OS and iOS. Now, how that script is or what that script is actually, I am not 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure that it would support some sort of certificate-based authentication as well. So I will ask our team to find out exactly how that functions. I just know that it does, or that it works with the built-in functionality that's with iOS and Mac OS. All right, then. Since there's no other questions at the moment, feel free to look at our schedule. We have our Nebula webinar coming up April 18th, so it's pretty soon, in 2 days. So make sure you keep an eye out for that if you haven't registered for it already. If you're interested in Nebula, we have Wireless 101 in April. We have a new partner introduction if you are a new partner on May 7th. Switch 101 that's back with me on May 14th. And then another session of Nebula on May 16th. So a lot of sessions coming up. So make sure you sign up for that. Find out if you don't have the link for it. There is a link on our website for the webinars that are coming up that you can register for. Or again, you can reach out to our regional sales team so they can provide you that information. So until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day. There was one last second from Gochko. See, I have a lot of customers running IPsec between US Office and European branch. It will be a huge difference if you could replace USG for VPN series. Yeah, well, in a sense, it would be, but you could add the SD-WAN in front of your current USGs to provide the connectivity, to ensure that connectivity between those two locations, your European branches and the US offices, are optimized. And then you can still use your existing USGs to do whatever the connection is on the inside. So you can still optimize that connection to improve the quality of that connection already, utilizing it. Of course, you can later on, if there is some implementations, like I mentioned, when you replace potentially the USGs with ATPs in the future, the ATPs may then possibly have the SD-WAN functionality, but very unlikely that the USGs will have them, just because they are of the older hardware and probably cannot, handle all of that. So in this case scenario, just main office replacement. No, you still would have to replace both sides, both the branch office and the head end, in order to get that SD-WAN optimization. You need both end-to-end in order for it to work. Otherwise, it's just a dual WAN connectivity. You need both two VPN tunnels from both branch offices to the headquarters to do that packet dynamic path selection, WAN optimization, to make sure that the packets are moving through correctly. So again, thank you, everybody. It's been fun. I hope to see you guys again at another webinar. Until then, thank you for being a Zyxel partner. We look forward to being your network ally. And if you have any projects, anything that you want to throw at us to figure out, hey, what is the best option, or what are your thoughts on a certain deployment, reach out to us. Reach out to me, again, try@zyxel.com. We can bring in our systems engineers and we can talk about, hey, what is best? What is your best product solution? And what models are probably work out best for you? in these different types of scenarios. So hopefully look forward to seeing more of these kind of applications in the businesses ahead, and happy hunting. Looking forward to again working with you. Until then, have a good rest of your day, good afternoon, and good night. Goodbye.